Okay.
That's
All right.
sweet.
All right, I'm ready.
I think
Let
this.
me go ahead and tweet it out, man. Tweet this out.
Why does it look like that? Okay, now it's okay. Now it's perfect.
Yo,
Welcome.
real quick,
Real
Joshua.
quick,
Oh,
real
go
quick,
ahead.
real
Sorry.
quick, real quick.
I'll show you later. Sorry.
That's what you be doing last time. Real quick, real quick. Always blocking me with that shit. Welcome to the PlayStation Podcast. Today we are going to spend an hour and a half speaking on about three subjects, main subjects. A lot of big things has happened within a week. A lot of big things. And honestly, I just want to express my feelings with these things. So we got two other fellow PlayStation members, PlayStation fans that are interested in the PlayStation culture. I mean, really, really interesting stuff. First and foremost, Jen the Dishonorable, how are you today? Let's do our introductions right now.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, we got a lot of good topics today, man. I'm actually looking forward to to having a discussion today, man. There's a
You,
lot of cool shit, a lot of narrative destroyed today, man. I mean, over the week. So, oh yeah, good shit.
so tell us
It's gonna be a good show today.
what you've been doing lately. What are you doing now, Mr. Dishonorable?
Oh man, yeah, man. I actually had a trip, man, that I had to go out of town, so I'm not even in town right now. But I still making time to be here, man. So
In
it's
case
a
you
great
guys,
week.
in case you guys don't know, he is not at home. He is right now. Right now, he's in that trip. So he is showing a sheer amount of dedication to be here. Make sure that we can provide the content for you guys. That being said, we have another guest. Well, we have a guest, not another, but this is a guest that
What's up?
our subject is going to be the first subject, which is the PlayStation Home revival. This is going to be near and dear to me, this subject, because of this dude. The power of social media in a virtual sense is strong. But before we even go into the subjects, which we'll go into, Mr. Hellscream, aka Terry, aka Hellscream, how are you?
What's up?
What's going on? Um,
So,
Let me just introduce you to everyone that is a part of the PlayStation culture. So, Hellscream or Terry, he just recently purchased a PlayStation 5. He's gone through hell, so he's been doing that lately. So I would like to know, what have you been playing on the PlayStation 5?
what I've been playing is played Hitman 3 as well as the rest of the trilogy. I just beat Spider-Man Remastered, and I'm playing Miles Morales, which I literally just started, so I'm about an hour in. So,
What impressed you the most about the PS5?
um, well, I mean, it got said a lot, but I mean, I guess it is worth noting is the sheer lack of noise, the quietness of the machine stands out quite a bit. From someone that owned a PS4 Pro since day one and even took it apart to redo the thermal paste and stuff because of the fan and how obnoxious it would be. That's probably the first thing you notice, at least in my case. Um, of course, I mean there are other things in terms of just the change you get in graphical fidelity and such. In my case, I got the PS5, and then 2 days later, I got a brand new 4K TV. Um, so yeah, a lot of
Man,
wow
I
factors.
bet you that was a kick in your fucking nuts.
Yeah, lot of wow factors. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I got a nice backlog to go through. But I guess because I went through so much frustration trying to get my hands on one. By the time I finally got one, it's like it's like this had been needing to happen. So I mean,
Hollow
there was a little
victory,
bit of a
a
honeymoon
hollow
period.
victory,
What's that?
a hollow victory.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of a honeymoon period, but it's like I really was dried. I was hanging out dry there for a while because I had so much stuff I wanted to play, but I wanted to play it on the PS5, in 4K. I didn't want to run through it again on the Pro. So, but overall, it's been a great experience. Now that I'm starting to play like Miles Morales, like the haptic feedback of the controller and the different sensations it provides with your through the hands, that's becoming more noticeable now. I'm sure in games like Returnal and other exclusives, Astra's Playroom, so on and so forth, I'll start to see that a lot more.
Hey,
But yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
hey, Ken, I know you got shit to do, so I know you're gonna be in and out, and I really do want you to be a part of this. Can you explain to this nigga to fucking play Astral's Playroom, please? Could you tell that to him?
Yo, I was just getting ready to ask. I'm like, yo, did you play Astro's Playroom?
No, he skipped.
Nah,
No, no, no.
Yo, he said
um,
you said you feel the haptic feedback in Miles Morales. I'm like, dude, he must not have played Astro's
No,
Playroom.
no, he
no,
didn't.
I'm part of me's doing that just to annoy my friend here. To be completely honest.
It's
So
really working.
so.
Just to let you know, it's effective. So very
He
irritating.
Yeah, man.
funny enough, I'll tell you this quick joke. He was talking about Returnal. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna pick it up," and I was like, "Well, I got a backlog I'm going through," and and so finally I told him I was like, "Well, if you think about it, if I pick up Returnal, that's just one other game I'll have to play through first before I get into Astro's Playroom." So so
Yo, honestly though, I think the haptic feedback and what they're trying to do with Returnal is going to be really cool, man.
It's gonna be
I don't
very.
know if it's going to be on the same level as Astro's Playroom because obviously Astro's Playroom was sort of built around showcasing the DualSense controller.
right.
But they're going to be doing some really cool stuff with Returnal, man. I can't wait to play it. But dude, you
Uh,
need to play Astro's Playroom, bro. It is fucking awesome. I mean,
I'll get
just
to it
yeah, it's
eventually.
it's cool.
See, shaking his head. So
This motherfucker is
uh,
bitch.
Pretty much. That's exactly the sentiment in my brain. So, that being said, we are going to move on to our three topics. We got three topics, main topics to really, really focus on, and the rest, we got little nuggets here and there. So, let's get into the topics. For starters, what we're going to talk about is PlayStation Home. We are also going to talk about the prospect of PlayStation Home revival. We're also going to talk about Returnal impressions and tech. And then Jim Ryan seemingly just crushed a lot of narratives within like a 2 day period, maybe a day period, within a morning. Like literally just
If
crushed the
that,
fuck out.
yo,
Yeah, I
yo, if
know.
that,
Like
probably just a few hours.
yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Like everything that was going on, and people would say that Sony wasn't responding, and this fucking CMOS battery, and blah 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 blah. He just crushed all of them. So let's get into PlayStation Home. The first thing I wanted to kind of let Ken, the dishonorable, kind of have a crack at this since you're gonna be in and out. Um, Trademark has been renewed for PlayStation Home. Ken, how do you feel about that?
I like it, man. I think if any time, man, to start bringing back some of those like old cool, features that PlayStation used to sort of get into, man. I think now would be the time, man. Especially being that PlayStation and Sony, they're really trying to. It seems like they're really trying to go in with the PS5, man. So, and I don't know, man. It just like they've been talking about, uh, like all of this stuff with the VR, and now they're renewing the trademark for PlayStation Home. I don't know, man. It looks like they're really trying to plan something big, man. Especially with the new hardware. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're really trying to go big with this, man. I'm not exactly sure how big they're trying to go. I mean, me and you kind of had a conversation on, what we think they might do, but one way or the other, man, it looks like they're trying to do some pretty cool stuff with PlayStation, just in general.
I would definitely hope. Now, a backstory regarding PlayStation Home and the power of these visual or virtual chat room spaces. You know, this is probably the best time to do it. We're trapped in a house due to COVID. You know, we can't really do anything. It's going to be probably another year before people feel actually comfortable going outside again due to the mental programming the world has done to the people, the masses. But regardless of the matter, um, our this PlayStation Home was like one of the first microtransaction, free to play type games of 2 generations ago. It was one of the only situations in that PS3, Xbox 360 era. It was a very new, very new concept. More importantly, though, the implementation for PlayStation Home was supposed to be, well, a place where you could, just like this PlayStation Culture channel, you meet like-minded people, you know, in a virtual space that's basically leans towards the video game aspects. So it was a virtual space where you can create your own avatar. You had your own personal space where you can invite people away from the general virtual public. Within this space, you were supposed to be able to show your trophies. Um, you were also able to set up furniture. You were able to buy furniture in their virtual mall. You were able to share pictures. You were able to watch movies, and you were able to allow people to actually hear what's on your hard drive via the corresponding media device. So if you had a stereo system, they would hear your music. If you had a TV system, they would see everything that's stored. Things have changed. It was brand new back then. I think it was 2007/2008 when YouTube was fresh, you know. Um, and there was a lot of copyright infringements. There were a lot of people that did not, or a lot of companies that did not want that to happen because it was like free. He was letting people see things for free. That was the problem. So they wouldn't allow you to have music or the movie aspects, but you could buy a theater and connect it to whatever is built into home that was free and available. Like the Core, they had like an IGN type service called Core, I believe, and you were able to see things of that nature. Pictures, whatever JPEG you had in your hard drive, you were able to actually use and hang up on your wall. And things of that nature. As time progressed, you were able to get different spaces like a yacht, things like that. That was pretty cool. But more importantly, you were able to, within the spaces that's not your apartment, meet up with people that have something in common. So there was like a kill zone little nook in the area, for which I met this dude, Hellscreen, back in 2007.
Back in 1994.
1994. No, it was in 2007. We were in a closed beta. I was using dial-up actually. So no, I was using DSL, not dial-up. It was DSL, and the internet restrictions weren't, or internet speeds weren't that necessary at the time. But I remember it like it was yesterday. We get in there. Wasn't really that much to do other than they had like a central plaza where you can go in, you can play pool, and you can bowl, do some bowling. And that was pretty much it, really. So we had that, which was pretty cool. And instead of having like an actual closed off space with, Killzone, this is back when Killzone was about to be released in 2007, so they would play the shit that they had for E3. There was like this hidden tucked away area where they had a giant screen, and we were usually able to do proximity chat within a closed beta. So we go in there and we're just talking, just a group of people, maybe about like 8 or 9 people, and we're expressing ourselves, the love that we have for Killzone. And I see this guy, and if you don't know, this dude is so metal, it hurts. Like he has guitars and chains and fucking spikes and shit like that, and that's how he made his avatar accordingly.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute my mic for a second.
All right, that's cool. Just mute it.
Right,
I can see that you're muting it or talking. So, So here we go. We have. I'm sitting there talking like, man, Sony finally has their kill zone. I mean, their Halo killer. Did you see it? So I see this guy with these leather pants, and he takes a step and he pauses and he makes his avatar fold his hands. And as I keep talking, I'm looking at this dude because it was like really conspicuous. He just keeps getting closer, and he's eavesdropping in this whole conversation. I guess he has some kind of enthusiasm with Killzone too. So eventually, he gets close enough so where we can hear, and he's like, "Well, you see, the thing about Killzone is that I'm like, who is this fucking dude, yo? Who is this?
uh,
This group of people
never,
of like
never,
10, yes, you did. Yeah, this group of people
never.
of like 10, it was 10 people, and we basically geeked out on just PlayStation and its culture with this PlayStation Home and the prospects of this thing, right? For like 4 or 5 hours, like mad fucking long. And to this day, I still speak with Terry, aka Hellscream. So, what do you think about this news?
Well, I mean, in my case, you can hear me good, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm,
yeah, yeah.
I'm. I mean, it's a long shot, but I mean, I am. It, there is a lot of excitement in that, go kind of going back to what you were talking about, like, our personal story aside, like the idea of having essentially having PlayStation Network, right? But socially experiencing that through a virtual world was really ambitious, and on paper it was an amazing idea. Execution, was lacking in certain areas, most definitely. But the idea that you could, you would have like a main plaza, and then you would have like other areas where you could buy clothing or customize your personal space, that you live in, and then you had what was it, like, you had clubs that you could be a part of,
Oh, I forgot about that.
not, I'm trying to think what they were called. I don't know if they were
I can
clans. They weren't.
vaguely
They
remember that shit. I do remember
Yeah.
that.
You didn't. They It wasn't called a clan or a guild. It was called like a club or some shit.
I think it was a club. Yeah.
Uh,
By the
but
way,
the but
on
the
the side on the
idea. Oh,
sidetrack,
go
do you
ahead.
remember the mods that they had, where if you acted up, they would put you in the corner. They were able to like move you.
Yeah, yeah. The moderators could physically displace your character. They could basically put you like in timeout and shit. Yeah, yeah. I vaguely, but yeah, as you mentioned it.
They were called
Um,
guides, and I remember this one dude was acting the fuck up, and he didn't want to get banned necessarily, but he was just being mad annoying. So this guy put him in a corner, and he was like pleading for help. Come on, please! It was like chat bubbles. They took out proximity chat, so
yeah.
you can see the chat bubbles. Come on, I'll be good. And the mob was. But
But
go on,
it
continue.
was such a cool idea because, like, for example, I remember one that was actually done really well was
The salt
the
one.
siren, the siren game, area, you know and I think you may had one for Resident Evil as well. You had a few. You obviously had a Killzone one and such, and you had the Uncharted, like,
Oh,
bar.
before you go on, the home was not a interconnected world. It was segmented, and it
True.
evolved into like you had your main like 5 areas that were based off of Sony servers, right?
Hmm.
Third party was able to make their own space where you could teleport to there. So that's what he's talking about.
Yeah. But the idea is that, like, let's say there was a place for fucking, because it's popular, right? Let's take Call of Duty, right? There was a Call of Duty space. You go there, you could, instead of just kind of playing through the game, you could meet people through there, and not only discuss the game, but like one of the things you're supposed to have were like trophies. So, like, perhaps you could show somebody like your credentials, but like, oh yeah, I got the platinum trophy for this Call of Duty and that Call of Duty, or whatever. Um, you could probably talk about your rank or prestige, or all that shit. But the idea was essentially, it was a neat idea to try and connect people throughout PlayStation Network through a virtual world, which was PlayStation Home. Unfortunately, it had some problems, and execution was a bit sloppy. But on paper, it was a great idea, and it was very ambitious, but it had a lot of potential. But the idea of that, Sony potentially may do a comeback with it. Yeah, it's definitely I'm excited for it. So
Jeremy, have
Yeah,
you ever used PlayStation Home? Or I think you were in the
I used
military
it
at
a
the
lot
time.
when I first got it. I think I used it a little bit, but I didn't always have internet either. So
I had that same problem, and like when I would get it back, it would be like completely like transformed. I'm like, what the fuck? So
when I first got a PlayStation 3, nobody had a fucking PlayStation 3. So
no
you
one
know,
had Bluetooth, and
no, not really.
yeah, the only way I was able to
I had one
use
friend in there.
the only one I met this girl, and she kind of told me about um her life, and she used to do like fucking I don't know what it wasn't meth, it was some other drug that she used to do, and she got herself cleaned up and stuff like that. She's actually still on my Facebook. I haven't spoken to her in like a decade. Uh, but we used to talk. She lived in New York, and I was really thinking about meeting her and stuff like that. But it's kind of creepy, I guess. Guy on internet. But I mean, we were talking the whole time. We would talk for a long time. And she knows shit about me, and I know shit about her, and it just never was to be. But I mean, a lot of cool scenarios. I remember the Mystic Gaming dude. He did a whole like 40 minutes of this, and he actually hit up some people that used Home, and there were actual people that used Home for um. That's all they used. They bought a PS3 just for Home, and that's
Well,
how.
it's kind of like The Sims.
Right.
A
They
lot of
were they
people just
were
play Sims.
they were very
some people were really treating
recluse.
it like Second Life or some
Yeah,
shit.
they were
Really.
recluse
So
because they were like,
Yeah,
I
like
remember
Sims.
this.
I know people that play Sims for decades. Like that's all they play.
The girl that they interviewed in this Mystic Gaming video, she was really recluse. Like she didn't in public, she wouldn't talk to anyone, but in home, she was able to be herself. She was like really emotional about that, and that wasn't the only person that was like that. So moving on to what this could mean, um, Terry, what were the flaws? If you can just quickly tell me the flaws, we got about 7 minutes.
quickly, quickly. So
We got a lot to run
the
through.
gaming, the gaming features of PlayStation Home were lackluster. In that, for example, like one of the things we were supposed to have was a trophy display, right? As of course, as you know, in my history, I used to, hunt for platinums really crazy for a few years, and then I got burnt out on it. I explicitly did it for that reason because I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, I want to go into home and show off all my shit, right? That never came along. The game
That was
launching
a lie.
feature, yeah, the game launching feature, where like, oh hey, Killzone 2 just came out. You're in the Killzone 2 space. You're chatting with some people. You're like, yeah, let's play some fucking Warzone. Y'all seem to know how to do your shit. Maybe we can make a clan on the game later on or whatever, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
Warhawk had a fucking war room where you could plan
yeah,
like on a map, and then after you like can set people up, you could just load up the game and it would just put you there. But go on, I'm sorry.
yeah. You're supposed to be able to launch, group up with people and then launch the game through home, right? And then everybody would go into there and you'd be in the same squad or whatever, and it very few games had that or used it correctly. Most of the time, if like you did a game launch, like let's say we were on Killzone or something, all it would really do was just close home, put us in the Killzone, and we'd still have to like invite each other to a squad or a match or whatever. Like it was not integrated at all or taken advantage of. So
PS3, you couldn't do group chats at all. That never
yeah,
came.
yeah. So the issue was simply that the gaming focus, the gaming centric features that were supposed to be there, that home was supposed to be built upon, um, were either poorly executed or just never appeared at all. And so it just became this fucking Second Life social thing. And then people who game just never even fucked with it, really. After a while.
Too much of a hurdle.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very unfortunate, but that's what ended up happening.
what do you think having the power of the PS5 would do? To help out the concept of home.
Well, obviously, like the way that and I'm sure improvements will come, but like the way that they've kind of changed to where you have a friends list system and then you have like a party list, which is separate. Um, things like obviously like the loading times, right, with the drive that they have now, like the transition from going to something like a home like game or program, and then booting up, you know, fucking, Horizon Forbidden West, and it's supposed to have co-op or whatever, right? Like that may be like a extremely quick transition, you know.
with the SSD.
That
Yeah, because you
yeah.
play Miles Morales, that basically you just instantly turn it on.
Right. One thing I took in my notes is maybe this could be like a way to kind of bridge the gap to make the transition going from the PS4 to PS5 a little easier. In that, people they're getting into a new system, having something like a PlayStation Home will accelerate the process of them, connecting with people on other games a lot quicker. Because of course, as they're getting rid of the community thing that they had with the PS4.
I never thought about that. It
Also,
could be. It could be.
something like I said, something to bridge the gap or kind of speed up that transition, right? To accelerate the process of how you kind of socialize and connect with other players on PSN. One more thing is kind of like with Astro's Playroom and how it is with the kind of the haptic feedback of the controller. Maybe home will be something similar, or maybe be something similar in the aspect of like the VR, right? So like they're coming out with the PSVR headset, so maybe that will be like a feature that's there for people to kind of experience the PlayStation VR headset. That's just a theory. Uh, but that's all I got in terms of ideas.
Jeremy, from what you
Yep.
remember, what do you think that they can do to improve on the concept of home?
I think they could make it where you could have groups and you could say, we want to get in a group and go bowling. You can't afford a new game or whatever the case. They got like Wii U bowling or they got VR bowling for people that have VR and you can see each other or something.
Hmm.
Or darts or billiards, kind of like a Yakuza game, you know what I mean? Where you could jump in and play a casual game together. Billiards.
That's not
And
bad.
you can go into different parts of the bar and shit and or different settings, a club, a bowling alley, whatever. Different parts of the community
You know it's
and go
funny.
do something.
You know it's funny. Distinctly remember this place called the Sodium. What was it? The Sodium Space, where it was basically they had like a little futuristic bar, and it was basically like, um, it was like what game was it? It was like a Wipeout. So you had a bar and everything like that, and whenever you wanted to kind of compete with the people that are in that space,
I think I remember what you're talking about
yeah,
vaguely.
you were able to race, uh, Wipeout style. And that was really cool back then. It basically home became a spot where indie developers could like make a game, but they would have to use the home's engine to do so, which it wasn't even easy to program for the PS3 at the time. So I mean,
Dude, what if they made home in the Astros Playroom engine? Huh? That'd be crazy.
That'd be sick.
the funny
They
thing
could
is,
add they could add onto a community every 6 months or something as part of Plus
Yeah.
too.
it did have a lot of aesthetics that
Open up frisbee golf
that
at the
Astro
park.
Playroom had. I remember home vividly. Do you remember that fucking bubble popping fucking the Central Plaza? Or it'd be like a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking people playing that frisbee thing, and you would have to pop bubbles and shit.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's how it was.
You remember when we I forget, it was one of the E3s we watched together in the theater section that they had. You remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
There
They
was
they
like there was
mapped
so many
out
little people running around the fucking like little theater. We're watching the E3 presentation.
they mapped out E3 virtually for everybody to kind of visit. And
That was actually really
in
cool.
the booths, even though you couldn't play the game, you were able to watch the trailers and stuff like that for it. I mean, really fucking awesome concept. What I would
Hmm.
imagine that they would make, because like when you play, I would want them to do like a living city. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously, I think at the end, towards the end of Holmes' life, you had like you had pets basically, and things of that nature. So I would like, because at that time, home could only hold 50 people per instance. And I think that was the max that they could hold. I would like to be able to have like about 200 to 500 people within an instance, but a world that is as big as like maybe I don't know a third of Grand Theft Auto. Um, and if you look at an apartment building, you can pick that aesthetic. I mean, you can pick that apartment building, and that would have a certain aesthetic. You obviously can't walk into the apartment building, right? Uh, so you was go in there. You will as soon as you go into the little load area or the load icon, it will load you into your own apartment when you go in front of the apartment building, or have like an L train that goes around the city, and you have to kind of do your own traveling. And during your travels, you can meet people that are a part of the culture or whatever the case is. Have like a space where developers could have billboards. It doesn't have to be like a game or anything like that, but just a space, almost like a 3D form. And they had that too. You may not remember it, but like I remember in home, you were able to go to one of these booths, and it would take you to a URL where you could move it along and stuff like that. It was a lot of crazy concepts. But stuff like that, it was supposed to be a virtual form, and I think that would have been like a really cool aspect. Have virtual spaces, especially with the whole CV situation, where you could visit certain areas. Let's say I don't like it, but Disneyland or Universal Studios or whatever. Just fuck around with it. Something similar to it. It doesn't have to be those things. The argument was, why would you play home if you could play games? And the argument was like that back then, and it's like that now. I mean, people play fucking WoW, World of Warcraft.
Yeah, but I would my rebuttal would be is that you don't like you would have little activities you could participate in, but you don't jump on home to play home. The goal to jump on home was to connect and to socialize. Like when we were playing Ghost of Tsushima, when we were playing the Legends mode. I told you I joined the community to where I could find other people to do the nightmare challenges. Because obviously you just didn't want any player who was running the mill. You wanted someone who was seasoned experience. Their character was geared out. They understood. Um, what kind of enemies we're facing, like shit like that. And while those communities serve that purpose, doing something like that in home in a VR world, it could be a bit more exhaustive, maybe a bit more detailed. Um, and then because everything is put on the hard drive now. I mean, I imagine most people, but Sony, there's so many games that they have digital. Most people would just, hey, you want to play Ghost of Tsushima? Okay, cool. You just pop it into your hard drive,
You don't
right? You
even
don't
know
even
the
have to put in the
person.
disc.
You don't know the person or how they play or if they're going to be one. Because there was a couple people we played uh, GOT with, and they fucking would disappear off the face of the earth or whatever the case is after they got their like fucking 3 day fix.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're like, yeah, I got my shit. Peace. They got
It was
their
fucking
cosmetic
annoying.
because you had a cosmetic for doing nightmare survival, nightmare story mission, and then of course the raids that they came out with. If you did those, you would get cosmetics for that. So yeah, people would get their shit and they would bounce. Which is fine, but I think having something like
The hardcore people just don't stick like they used to anymore.
right.
I will say this. Let's go back to the apartment thing before we move on, and we can always kind of like parking lot this idea or the subject for a later date if we find out more information. Um, you know how we were able to pull the videos from your hard drive and have people watch it with the TV and shit like that. Um,
Oh, I forgot about that.
yeah, that's how it was. So what if you take somebody to your house and you show them your best clips that the operating system records when you get your trophy? You know,
Right.
let's say that.
Same thing with screenshots. You could use that to put up on your personal space wall, or if you remember when we talked about the patent about how it records the data on your controller. So like, if somebody's having a hard time with a trophy, like you could take them to your space and be like, hey, here's my recording, right? And so it shows like what you're doing on screen,
Mm,
but also the button prompts for the controller. Like, dude, there's all kinds of fucking possibilities, man.
I just
So
hope that they get it together. I don't think Sony was really going all in because of the space that they were. They were bleeding money with the PS3s, and their TVs were going out of business, and it was a lot. People wanted them to sell their TV. They used to do
It wa-
laptops. They had to
it was
sell
a
that.
troublesome time for Sony, most
It was
definitely.
really
So
bad.
they
So I
Yeah, they were
mean,
taking an ass kick, and they were on selling consoles because they had to lower the price to be able to sell software.
hmm
it
So
sucked.
they were taking a real ass whooping.
It sucked. And then PS4, they weren't quite sure that they were going to do this stuff. You know, that it was going to be successful rather, and it became
hmm
like a crazy fucking hit. You know, and that's when they started to become more liberal with the power that they can do and stuff like that. And it's paid dividends. So now they can kind of kind of freely fuck around with different concepts. But yeah, that's the subject that we have for PlayStation Home. If we find out any more information about it, we'll definitely kind of express our enthusiasm with it. I think everybody is in agreement that this is it's
It
big.
could end up being an awesome thing if they go full force into
I
it.
would love it.
I really think that.
I would
I'll
absolutely
go
love
bowling with you. I'll go bowling with you.
it.
Right.
So our next subject is Returnal and the impressions. So far, Sony has money had it. These influencers online, uh, to play their game. And it seems like everybody is in agreement that this is a really, really fun game. But before we even go on to the technical aspects and just the impressions, I want to read you guys what this game is exactly. This is coming from somebody that has played it already. So,
Exactly.
this is the situation when it comes to this. So, let's take a look here. I put it in. What was it? Was it in PlayStation? That's what it was. So, gentleman here says this. He says, "I think people are expecting a totally different game than what it is really." He says they probably should have put out a demo for this because the majority of the people sending or spending €80 on their pre-order won't finish the second the second act. Demon Souls says Dark Souls is easy to in comparison because you can overlevel and thereby reduce the difficulty and keep your progress in between deaths. In Returnal, you lose everything on death or when you leave the game. You can't just cheat it by backing up your save game either because it'll get wiped and you when you exit the game and respawn from the starting point. Um, let me take a look here where I lose my place at. Da, da, da. There are checkpoints between acts though, which helps. So I'm not sure how that really plays out. But Housemarque and PlayStation Studios did not do a great job promoting the game for what it really is. In trailers and gameplays, it looks like a semi-story-driven arcade-style third-person shooter with maybe a bit of horror and survival elements, when in fact it is a rogue genre. And rogue genre, let me see here. Does he describe what it is? I wouldn't even say roguelike because in roguelike, like Hades, you have a hub area where you can upgrade some stuff in between deaths and retain some useful leveling that gives you an advantage on the next try. It's going to be at least an 8 out of 10 difficulty platinum and quite an annoying grind for the gold trophies to complete the database in each world because the game is randomized. It could take a while. Returnal is closer to Wolfenstein 2 Mine Lobin difficulty. I guess that's the most difficult. But with a randomized map each time, there are no difficulty options, so it will be the same. It will be same hardcore experience for everyone. Yeah, there's no difficulty options. When you die, you get put all the way back to the beginning at the ship. So you open areas up. This is what I did find out. You open areas up, but it's still the situation still is like you still gotta walk from one act to the other, the jungle area to the desert area, and you cannot die. That's the situation. You cannot die. That being said, Ken, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What do you think about that shit?
I love it, man. You know me, man. I'm an avid Souls player, which I know this game isn't related to the Souls game, but uh, I love the difficulty aspect, man. Every game that I play it, on the hardest difficulty. So when, like me reading that, because I did read it before, um, I find it exciting, man,
Did you
because
read? Did you read it when I posted it, or did you read it some other way?
I think I saw it on Twitter, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I did read it though. You know, so the guy was talking about how it was going to be a different experience than what most people would probably suspect, and I don't have a problem with the details that he kind of uh, sort of highlighted. As a matter of fact, I really like it, man. I like the fact that it's going to be a challenging experience, and on top of that, um, it's it's going to be procedural, so it's going to be different every time in terms of like how each biome, how you interact a little bit with each biome. So I'm all for it, man. I love it. I love the fact that they're doing that. I feel like there aren't that many games where they sort of just don't hold your hand anymore. Um, I don't know, man. I really do like games that sort of challenge you um, in different ways like that. So, and on top of that, they have all of this stuff with the new technology with the DualSense and all that stuff. So I think it's going to be a really cool, challenging sort of like immersive experience, and I can't wait to play it myself personally. But I could honestly though, man, I could see how some people um, might feel like the game is a little bit maybe not their cup of tea because of some of the things like that. I don't know, but
I think
as far as
Sony. I
me,
think Sony deliberately didn't want to tell people that, not because of trying to deceive people, but this is something that you want to experience. And I feel like if people can play the Souls games, and was fresh to that, because to me it reminds me of that, because it's different than a regular game. Most of those games that are roguelike is like isometric. I don't think I've ever, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I've ever seen a third person you can move the camera and it'd be like this. I've never seen that before. So
not off the top of my head, no. Which is cool too because it sort of feels like a new kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? It feels like it, at least in how they're presenting it, um, and what they're trying to do with it. So yeah, absolutely. I can't think of anything else that's quite like it. I see a lot of people trying to compare it to Recore, but it's just not the same thing. It's not the same concept.
it's not the
You
same
know?
concept. You and
It's a
Recore,
budget title too. I was playing it earlier.
you
Yeah.
if you and Jeremy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And Recore, you could basically fly in that game, right?
I only played it for like an hour, so
Did where you had a jetpack? Did you fly and stay up in the air, or
you can dash in the air.
can you
Yeah.
You
stay in
might be
it?
able to get there eventually.
I've seen
No,
somebody up in the air and they were like there for an extended amount of time, and
maybe later in the game.
yeah, in this
Yeah.
I only
I
case,
played it
actually
for an
did.
hour today. I'm just
I
prepping
actually,
for Returnal.
yeah, I actually did play Recore, man. I got to the end of it myself, and I never finished it because there was there's a mechanic where you have to like collect these what they call prismatic ores, and you have to get like every single one of them to finish the game, and it's like the most tedious grind ever. I just couldn't do it, man.
can you
Because
fly in
I don't
that
know.
game, Ken?
No, it's okay. So on Twitter, right, you saw a lot of people who were sort of like comparing Record to Returnal in terms of like how the game sort of not the actual like uh, not the game itself, like the full game and the mechanics, but like how the actual gameplay mechanic
You can dash
function.
back and forth, and you can charge
Yeah,
shot. That's
yeah,
basically what the
yeah,
similarities.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like a lot of people, they were showing the pictures of like Recore where you could shoot whatever, you could dash left and right, you could jump dash, and there's auto aim as well.
There's heavy
Um,
auto aim. That's like
it's super heavy, yeah, and Recore it is, yeah.
yeah, and
It
I
looks like
mean,
you
it's
can
not even
adjust
aim
it.
assist. You just lock onto the character, so all you could do is wiggle back and forth. It looked like from the videos that I've seen.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much, man. But that, as far as that, man, that was pretty much the only comparisons with the game because every other part of the game is very different. I mean, I don't know exactly what you saw with people in Recore like saying elevator in the air or whatever, but I mean that you have like these companions in the game where you can sort of like traverse different like in different ways. Like you could have this one companion where you could like crawl against walls and stuff like that, and you know stuff like that. You know what I mean?
It wasn't.
But
It
it's just
wasn't
very
it
good.
like a puzzle game too. Like it was. You did some light shooting, but mostly puzzle.
I don't know if I'd say it was a. I mean, I guess it was light puzzle stuff. I mean, but it wasn't anything major. It was mostly like tracking down switches and
Yeah,
shooting the
having your
switch to
dog
open
find
the door.
switches and
So
shit.
it wasn't mostly
Yeah,
combat, and I think people don't understand. That's my point. And Returnal, that shit's combat.
yeah,
You're exploring to get better weapons to fight. That you're fighting most of the time. I feel like the fighting and other elements is inverted with Returnal. You know,
yeah,
Terry,
man.
we talked about this shit last week or earlier this week or earlier last week. Later, I don't know what the fuck you want to call it. But my question to you is: I told you how Returnal was, and you were like, "What the fuck?" And he was like, "Nah, I don't believe it." So now that we got pretty much confirmation on this, like, how do you feel about this?
Well, I hadn't really looked into it until very recently.
Like last hour.
Well, last 2 hours, but so I think one thing that's confusing that a lot of people they don't really know how to define it is what is a rogue genre or a roguelike genre game, and uh, you can go way back in the day where you had because they typically were like dungeon crawlers. It was a high narrative fantasy. So like those old PC games where you were hold on one second. You were keep my PlayStation turned off. You would essentially you would have it would be by yourself or you'd have a party that would accompany you, and basically you would do dungeon crawling, and the levels were procedurally generated. So it was never the same thing every time. Obviously, it was very loot driven as well. And of course, some when you die, you lost all progress. Some when you died, you had a central hub you go to. Um, Upgrades, it depends. Some systems you would level up. Some systems you just had upgrades, like a Metrovania type thing. You acquire a new gun or a new whatever. Um, Also, from the tweet or what you read at the beginning off your phone there, um, that what that guy's saying is actually wrong in that the player does not lose all progression. There are things that once the player unlocks to progress to, it stays unlocked. So, for example, there's a it's like a giant lightsaber, basically the sword you acquire. Once you acquire that at any point, if you die, that persists through death. And so when you go through those procedural levels again, if you run into like a big red doorway, you break out your lightsaber and you bash it and you open it up a new path. So there are certain things that you keep. I think your weapons as well. Um, I don't know
I
like
heard of the
to
weapons.
extent
I
what.
heard of the weapons. No,
Yeah,
but
I
I
don't
think
I don't
up.
know if you keep the weapons or the upgrades. Perhaps
Yeah,
that you the weapons. Maybe you keep that and then you have to pick up the weapon again at some point. But it seems that the player definitely does not lose all progression. I even in the IGN preview they said that for each biome you have a boss, right? So once you defeat that boss, you do not have to defeat them again. So I'm assuming they mean that in regards as you're able once you beat that boss once, the doorway to the next biome is opened, so you don't necessarily have to beat that boss again if you have to die or you start over. But I remember that being mentioned. Also, the way that the gameplay looks like is if you know what a shoot 'em up is or a shmup, things like a Resogun or Super Stardust, there's a lot of emphasis on basically movement, right, and outmaneuvering your opponent. So I noticed that like with the aiming system, if you're basically within general vicinity, your crosshair kind of snaps to the target. So it doesn't seem like pinpoint precision is not the name of the game, right? It's more or less just staying on the move and outmaneuvering your enemy. And then of course you apparently seem to have a large variety of guns that have a primary and secondary function. And so really, it's just if you have a shotgun, you have to get in close to take advantage of that, obviously. But it seems like a combination of like it's a roguelike game and then like a shoot 'em up at the same time. And then like the narrative stuff is like most of that's played through in first person, and then you have little bits and pieces of like a codex entry or whatever that you find. So it definitely seems pretty cool now that I've actually looked into it. So.
Now, what we're gonna do is talk about the technical aspects to it. So, what the game is, it's when I first saw the game, it didn't look that. It's not that it looked bad, but it didn't look next gen to me. You know what I mean? It looked like they leveraged most of the next gen abilities just for particles and just sparks and shit. On closer inspection, the game is a native. It's a dynamic 4K, 60 frames per second game, and all the previews that I've seen. I mean, what's the phrase that you like to use? Liquid smooth gameplay. So, uh,
Buttery smooth.
And it has ray tracing too.
say again.
I said, and it has ray tracing as well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get
Dynamic
to.
4K,
So
60 ray
when
tracing.
when it comes to ray tracing, there's different aspects to ray tracing. In the ideal world, and they don't even do this with CG. In the ideal world, every light source is shooting out rays of light, billions of photons, and that bounces everywhere or gets absorbed depending on the type of surface. And that's how you would see it. So the way that the light rays gets bounced off, it depends on the roughness of the surface. So that's how you would create like reflections or just rocks, something that looks dull and doesn't have any luster. With all of that being said, you can't do that obviously with these next generation systems. You could do some things, but not all, and it's not at the quality of obviously real life. So what they do is um, they break the different aspects of lighting into different pieces. Shadows, global illumination, which is the bouncing of light in general. It's what makes a room like I can have, I don't know, a lamp in my room and it will illuminate the entire room. Why? Because all the light rays is bouncing everywhere in my room and bouncing. It's hitting something and bouncing off something. If it's in a a lighter color. If it's black, then you don't get the color. So you got that. You got the reflections, and that's what most people were focusing on. Like in Miles Morales, you got reflections for the windows and shit like that. So what they're able to do is kind of have certain points of the polygons and have it bounce off. It'll be a lower polygon version of it, but it will still be able to accurately reflect within a surface, or you won't reflect that far out and stuff like that. I always said that global illumination is probably the most important, because you can cheat reflections a lot, but global illumination will give that more tangible feeling, and that's what Returnal has. Now, when you have procedurally generated environments, what an artist would do when they make an environment is that they have to carefully model the lighting and where it's at. You know what I mean? So a lot of the games that we had back in the day, and even last generation, didn't have real time lighting, day and night cycles and stuff like that. Because if you did that, then the game it would look worse, a lot worse. So what they would end up doing is just having it fixed, and basically the lights were in a perfect place here and a perfect place there, whatever the case is. With global illumination, everything could change. Everything, you can move everything around and keep the same consistent lighting without having an artist go in there. So with these, how can I put it? The randomly generated environments, they are able to do a lot of cool things randomly. That's why when you played a randomly generated environmental game back in the day, they couldn't deviate too far off because its nature of being random would fuck up the art. So they would just have the same type of hallways and just have it randomly generated that way. And this is a different randomly generated game. And I'm curious to see how different it is. But regardless, they used they use global illumination so they can morph the environment and don't have to have an artist go in there and do all these things. The lighting just bounces wherever the environment, however the environment works, or the shape of the environment in this case. So it's doing some next generation things. Not only that, but the controller, supposedly, if you play Astro's Playroom, it really uses the haptic feedback. You have attenuators for the motors that vibrates, which is different from something that spins a weight. That's how we've been doing it for the last like 4 generations. You're creating high fidelity vibrations to the point where you can feel different textures. And in this case, you can feel the raindrops through the controller, um, different material when you clash into it, all sorts of crazy things. But more importantly, they're able to do with the adaptive triggers have secondary fire within there, and you will feel like a click when you want to do like the heavy hitter mode of that weapon. So half a click is just regular, and you push it in further to do the heavy mode. So it's pretty cool. They have something similar to that in Astro's Playroom when you boot up the game. So
Yeah,
I'm all
man.
for it. I'm all for it. I'm totally like,
Yeah, yeah. Me and you were talking about this, man, and I don't see like I don't think people really like kind of even understand a little bit like even how much the haptics are really going to play a role in this game, man. Um, like there was a I know me and you saw it, but I'm not sure if Hellscream or Nelson saw it. But there was a video going around on Twitter where they were showcasing how the actual rain, how you could feel it
Oh
in the
yeah, I
haptic.
seen that. I seen the
Yeah, it
control
was.
vibrating and shit. That was cool.
Yeah, like the way that the haptics like reacted to the actual game and everything, it was like it sounded like rain. You know what I mean? And you'll be able to feel that, you know. And Josh, see, like Josh was talking about like the main fire and the alt fire. Um, so how that's gonna go is like when you press like what they're gonna do right is you're gonna press the trigger down halfway, right, and then you'll meet resistance, and then once you hit that point of resistance, what you can do is you can either choose to continue with your regular fire or push through the resistance to get your alternate fire. So that's pretty cool, man. Like I think that's pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? And see, I don't know if you guys have played Astro's Playroom, but there was a weapon in the game, a couple of weapons actually, where you could feel the haptics. I mean, the adaptive triggers. One in particular that it kind of reminds me of is the bow and arrow, because with the bow and arrow on Astro's Playroom, you could literally feel the full arc of the bow. Literally, like you could slowly draw the bow and arrow, you know, all the way until it's full tension, and then you could like slowly release the trigger, you know, and like let go of the tension slowly. So it was really cool. You could feel it, and I think they're gonna do something similar like that with Returnal.
well, if you really want to see that whole rain thing, they have that exact thing in in Astro's Playroom. I remember
Chocolate rain.
chocolate rain. I remember I took off my headphones just to kind of like sense it because I was like, man, what the hell? And it sounds just like that. It's these attenuators that are in the oh fucking hell. Oh, there we go. I knew it was gonna fucking go into rest mode. Son of a bitch. Anyway, um, these attenuators were meant to be speakers, a speaker technology, and then someone decided to put it in cell phones for motors because they were compact in size. Um, but yeah, you can do that there too. So overall, it looks like the impressions for Returnal. I feel like they're not doing a good service either. You know, explaining what the game is. I mean, you got to really dig into it.
You
So
know what, man? Kind of going to the. I don't know if you guys already talked about the impressions of the game already, but um, I'm really happy, man, that the game is getting good reception. You know, because there was a lot of negative press surrounding the game. Not only because uh, you know, I guess the game to some people just didn't look like a next generation. See, like even you mentioned that it didn't really look like a next generation game to you until you sort of like started digging into it a little bit. But also the fact that the game was $70 or is going to be $70, you know. But now that everybody sort of has their hands on it or whatever, it's getting a lot of great impressions, and I'm happy for it, man. I'm happy not only for the game but also for the developers. Housemark. You know, they're a small studio, obviously, and in my opinion, I think they've always made decent games. But you know, I'm glad to see that they're able to sort of like take it to the next level. You know, and then get recognized for it. You know,
Yeah,
but yeah,
I mean, regardless
yeah,
of if it's the same typical situation where influencers are trying to be too cool for school. Oh, we got our hands on it before anyone else does. Find out tonight. You know, I don't
It
know.
gets a lot of people to watch.
It does.
People
So
want to see it.
I feel like
Got my ass.
I feel like there's some truth to it for sure. You know what I mean? I definitely feel like there's some truth to it. So
I watch all of them.
I try not
you
to.
watched all the impressions. Holy shit!
All the gameplay demos.
I
I'm
try
watching
not
all
to.
of
I
them.
try not to because I need it to. I want it to be like a full on surprise. So
I need my fix.
I need my fix. Yeah,
So you
bro.
haven't watched like the full impressions?
I watched like I skimmed over it just so I can kind of get an understanding. Because the thing that I was curious about is if you die and no one was able to articulate what happens, properly. It was up until what Hellscream just said. I didn't fucking know. You know, they were saying the stupidest things. Like I don't care.
Yeah, no, it's basically when you die, you kind of go through this time loop, and she's back at her ship like narratively. But from what I've gathered, to what extent I don't know, but it is loot driven. So like there are upgrades you have for your weapons. There are these special, I forget what they are, but I guess it's like alien technology or alien life forms or something that like you can attach to yourself or put in your suit. And
Yeah,
while
I've seen
it
that. It'll give
provides
you a
a,
benefit and a
yeah,
negative too.
yeah. So while it gives you a buff of some kind, it also gives you a debuff as well. So you're having to pick your poison, so to speak. Um,
It's like a risk reward kind of thing.
yeah. So you have like you have like loot that you upgrade weapons, things that affect your suit. You have consumables, as well as you have items that tie into progression. So keys or whatever. I know that there's a little bit of platforming, um, but there's definitely some amount of the progression you make is maintained, that persists through death. So so yeah, you don't lose everything. That's not true. So that was a
Even
lie.
that was a
Oh,
lie. Even if it's not, if even if what you're saying is like a half truth, I mean, I know enough. You know what I'm saying?
and
Um,
in difficulty, like this one guy, he was saying that uh he died like once in like an hour and a half, and he was able to get to the second biome. Um, he said once you get to the second biome where that kind of red sand desert area, he said things did start to pick up in difficulty. But once again, I imagine it's a trial and error thing. There are certain things you'll keep progression wise that will make things a little easier, but also I imagine as you kind of play through it, it's like I'm confident in that. If you're making a game like that, you have to find the right balance. If it's soul crushing difficulty and there's nothing that the player can do to kind of learn from that mistake and then improve in a noticeable way. Yeah, you're going to have a game that's like dead on arrival, you know, with the exception of a few, people who are just gluttons for punishment. But difficulty wise, it seems like it's the first two levels don't seem to be that bad. It's just beyond that. That's when it starts to pick up. So each biome or level, I guess the difficulty cranks up to some degree. And the same guy who I mentioned previously, that he said he really didn't actually have a hard time until he got to the second or third biome, and then he encountered this new enemy that he had never fought before, right? So he got his ass kicked. So I imagine as you gain experience, literal and in the meta, right? That things will probably, you'll go further and further upon each death. So
Yeah,
I
it's
will.
probably like like once you start to play through it enough, you'll start learning the patterns of the enemies and stuff. I mean, there's only but so much you'll have to learn. I
right.
mean, it'll be presented to you like in different ways. Obviously, the environments are going to change, but the enemies like themselves, their patterns and stuff. I mean, you'll be able to learn it, I'm sure, like over time. And you know, as you like start to level up your character in certain ways and keep some of your upgrades, it'll probably get a little bit easier, you know, and probably even more fun too, you know, because then you'll have like that sense of satisfaction that you push through all that shit, you
Right.
know. Yeah,
I
There's
was
another feature as well where you have to be connected to the internet, of course, obviously, but like if if you have someone, I don't know if it's just a random player or someone on your friends list, but essentially, if someone was to die, that creates a corpse that you can see in game, and when you stumble upon it, you can basically pilfer any goods, or you can choose to avenge them. And if you do that, you actually have like a mini boss you can throw down with, which I imagine if you defeat it, you probably get a lot more goodies. Um, so that seemed like a pretty cool feature.
and I feel like the randomly generated environments will add a lot of longevity to, or keep it fresh, dying over and over again. You know, and keep you more careful. And I feel like when I played the Souls games, they do a lot of cheap shit to kill you. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like with this type of game, it's pretty
hey
much
Josh.
it's difficult due to the challenge in itself and your finger dexterity versus like, oh, now I gotta learn it because this game cheaply killed me. You know, you're sitting there and all of a sudden like an enemy just drops on you and kills you and you're like, okay,
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun though, man.
makes what fun?
You died.
Makes what
You
fun?
died.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, it makes it fun. Makes you get good, man. That's the whole point. You
It
gotta
makes
get
you
good.
get irritated. That's what I think it does. That's not skill based. That's just being cheap. And I don't think that
And
that's not in this game that I could see. It's the challenge is literally what's presented to you, and they prepare you for it. Now, whether you could handle it or get better with it, it's a different story. So I feel like the frustration in this game would be totally different from the Souls games. You know. So I have a question.
I was gonna say too, man. My bad, man. I was gonna say too that you know, I feel like the way that they're structuring it is gonna give the game, like you said, a little bit more longevity. You know, especially like in some of the hardcore. I think there's gonna be like a cult following for the game, man. You know, for people who are, you know, who want to just sort of like go back and do like different challenges or whatever. You know,
We
so
don't know.
I
Maybe there's
think
a
this.
revival perk. You're gonna use it once, so if you die, kind of like in God of War, where you die and then Atreus, revives you. We don't know what other perks that there could be. Could
Yeah,
be,
true.
could be a lot of different
I'm.
things. That's why I said that it's kind of like we don't. They don't want to tell all the stories. I mean, all the secrets of the game. Like they don't want to do it because they don't want you to, you know, really just understand every fucking thing about the game. Like find shit out on your own, to make it fun. I got a question for Terry though.
Hmm.
What do you think about the main character looking like Ellen DeGeneres?
I mean, considering the fact that I don't think there's been a render of her like without the suit on, so I mean, you see her face. I mean, she looks like a middle-aged, stressed out, Karen. I guess I don't know. Like, uh,
Hey,
I
well,
I I I don't I
I
don't
think we
get
can
the
all agree
vibe
that.
of a Ellen DeGeneres, definitely. But I mean, it's kind of whatever. I mean,
Like, why did they get this old
is
bitch to do this shit? Like, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
I don't know. Maybe the game is just an over flamboyant expression of a midlife crisis or something. I don't fucking know. Um,
or maybe
But you
it's
know
just
what, man?
virtue signaling for like, you don't have to have a middle. I mean, you don't have to have a hot, sexy
well, I
babe.
don't think I don't think I've seen that so far in terms of what's available. So I don't know. Maybe
She
there'll be a deep uh, um, third wave feminazi message in the game somewhere. I'm not sure.
she got a
So
deep ass
that
voice too. Like she
that
I
that
looked.
is yet to be discovered.
I saw her die and she died. She's like, oh, oh. I'm like, damn. Mm. That
Hey, but
ain't
you
it.
know what, man?
Hmm?
I don't know.
I think we can all agree that
Don't
that
you
she has
say
some
it.
cake, man.
You're gonna find out that it's a man. She be like,
She,
this was.
she's,
She
she's
gonna say that this was my story of transformation from a man to a woman,
No.
and
she,
this
she,
is
she's
how I
she's
felt
got
metaphorically.
she's
I
got cake, Josh.
I did not feel normal in the world.
Well, luckily for me, I'm gonna
Lu-
wait for you to play it first before I pick it up. So
Luckily for you. So,
I'm
regardless, you
curious to
already.
see what they're gonna do with the story, though, man. Like,
I already told
because
you what
they
it
did
was.
think
Me and
I,
Terry told you what it was. This is some
I
sort of
know.
metaphysical transformation, transgender transformation. That's what this is. She
No, I'm
feels she
talking about
feels
like,
she feels alien because she doesn't know what gender she is, and this is her
oh
way of
god,
coming to.
jeez. I,
why
they did
why you
say
thinking about that, yo? You like, is this a possibility? I hope not.
I didn't think about that shit until you said something.
I feel alien. Wait, this house shouldn't be there. This is when my father beat me up. Why?
She just woke up one time and she remembers that she was a man. Like what the fuck?
Tentacles everywhere. This is what I feel like I have deep down inside. That I have one big tentacle and I want it. She's gonna say. Okay. Next topic. Last topic. Right.
moving on. Moving on. Christ.
Terry's like, yo.
Next topic.
Terry's like, no. PlayStation is done for. Anyway. Last topic is Jim Ryan's course correction, like serious course correction. I'm gonna let you. You know more about this than me, man. Ken. So you take the reign with this one.
Um, it was this whole like last couple of days has been absolutely beautiful in terms of like all of the narratives that has been crushed. I mean, like ferociously, like that shit's been curb stomped, yo. Like all those narratives, like
Can you tell
because
me the narratives that were crushed?
yeah, man, because for a while now, man, like for the last few weeks, at least a month or so, there's been just a barrage of information that's been coming out, and a lot of it wasn't even from Sony directly, but we've just had people coming out like Jason Schreier with that freaking article, man, talking about like the unrest in the PlayStation Empire and all that stuff.
That shit died
Um,
out, didn't it, yo? Died out just as
that,
quickly as it fucking lit on fire.
yeah, man, it's just all of that shit, man. Like there were people who were just talking, like there's just been this like persistent narrative that one Sony, they're not supporting smaller devs. They're not really supporting indie developers. You know, all they want to focus on is like AAA, cinematic narrative games. They're playing it safe. Like I've heard all of this shit. Like they're playing it safe because Jason Schreier in his article they were talking about how they were considering potentially doing like a Last of Us remake and all that. Um, and that they weren't really trying to like explore different genres, like things like that. You know what I'm saying? There was also this narrative about PlayStation and Sony not really caring about preserving, like their legacy games and all that stuff. And to make it even worse was the fact that they were at the time they announced that they were going to close down the PlayStation 3, Vita, and PSP store, which they had since revoked. Um, but there was just a crazy amount of narratives that have been like floating around for the last few weeks, and the crazy part is that you couldn't really say anything about it because like Sony just they weren't talking. Like that's like I think that was their biggest enemy, man. The fact that they weren't really talking
But
and people
was
were
it? But
just
was
they
it
had
their biggest enemy though? Because look what happened though.
well, yeah, I know. I was getting ready to say that because I wouldn't necessarily say was their biggest enemy, but I guess what I mean is like in the moment, in the moment it was like they weren't really talking, so you couldn't really like combat what people were saying. They basically had free reign to be like, oh, Sony's not doing this, they're not doing that, they don't care about that, and you know what I'm saying? And just recently, man, Jim Ryan had did an interview with I don't know who they are, man, an outlet, Nikkei, whoever they are.
The Japanese
Um,
thing, yeah.
yeah, they had done an interview recently, um, and crushed, like literally crushed all of the fucking narratives with this shit, man. All of it, you know.
So
The
so
game,
so can you go through the list of the narrative that they crushed? Since you already explained the narratives that were out there. So can you go down the list
yeah,
and say what they crushed?
yeah, absolutely, man. Like, and to be clear too, this was like a mixture of Herman Hulst and Jim Ryan, because there were two different. They both made two different series of comments. But the first thing that I thought, dude, um, was when Jim Ryan came out and he said that they had been quietly um, investing into AAA games and just content in general, and I feel like that was.
This was a narrative. This crushed the narrative of them not working on double A. I mean, yeah, was it in double A or triple A games?
Well, I think that specific part of the comment was really sort of like tailored towards, people saying that Sony, they weren't really doing anything, like they were quiet because they didn't have anything to show. They were quiet, you know what I'm saying, like stuff like that. Because people were saying that too,
Right,
that
right.
Sony, they're just quiet, and they needed to like change the narrative because all of this negativity is surrounding it and all that. And then Jim Ryan came out. He was like, "Whoa, nah, that's not the case, man. You know, we've
Actually, he
literally
didn't
been,
say it wasn't the case. He just he just said, "Oh, we were
well,
working on this," and it like
yeah,
slyly like nipped that shit in the bud.
yeah." And I liked it too because, like you said the other day, man, they uh, they didn't directly address the people who were making these comments. Like you said, they were just sort of like, "Yeah, we've been quietly working on games." you know and then it's funny, like as they were saying that, they dropped another game, like they announced another game, with an indie development studio, Firewalk Studio, um who
So
obviously they were.
this one is talking about how they crushed the double A narrative.
Yeah, yeah, they didn't like the narrative that they actually too. The fact that they didn't support indie developers was one of them, because Firewalk is still a relatively small studio and they're independent. Um, and they're being sponsored by, what was it, Probably Monsters, I believe it was,
And what
as well as
exactly are
Sony.
they? And what exactly are Firewalk making?
So Firewalk, they're making a multiplayer game, a unique multiplayer. This is, I forgot how
They
they
claim
worded
it
it
was triple
specifically.
A,
Yeah, a AAA multiplayer original IP or something like that.
and it's from the
Um,
developers that made like ex developers that made Destiny from the, you know
yeah,
the notate.
yeah, it was a few. It was from Destiny, Call of Duty. I think there was another game that a couple of them had worked on. I can't remember what it was though, but that they crushed that narrative too about how Sony isn't investing into like multiplayer games for the platform and stuff like that. That has been around forever. People were like, "Oh, Sony needs to invest into more multiplayer games and stuff like that." So yeah, man, that they crushed that shit. And then like a lot of people were saying that Sony was whatever, like they were playing it safe. They didn't really want to experiment with new games and stuff like that, new ideas and fresh concepts. And then Herman Hulse came out. This motherfucker was like, he was like, yeah. So we want to work on a diverse list of games. And then he said that not only are we committed to quality in AAA games, but we're also committed to experimentation. You know, so as from the diverse list of games that they already have, they're looking into bringing on new concepts and new ideas and stuff like that. But not only just that, but bringing it like up to a AAA, like high quality standard too. So they're committed to high quality games and committed to new and interesting and whatever fresh concepts and stuff like that. So that completely destroyed that whole narrative too, you know, about Sony just playing everything safe, and they're just not trying to invest into new shit. Yeah. So, but yeah, man, it was a lot. It was a fucking lot, man. That they crushed like literally within a few hours, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things here, and before I get to Jeremy and Terry, people were finding anything to complain about when it came to Sony, like any fucking thing. The first thing that they were complaining about was what was the first thing? Overheating, then coil whine, then controller drift,
The fan. They
then
had different
fucking
fans.
SJW shit. Then they moved on to the SSD being built in, so they complained about that shit, Um, so that was the thing, oh, the SSD is built in and it could only read and write so many times, they claimed, you know what I'm saying? So if it breaks, then your console's gonna be broken forever, like shit that's gonna happen in like fucking 15 years from now, you know? If it breaks, then that's it for you. And you don't know how Sony is going to work the SSD being connected. Maybe they'll allow for your external SSD to hold the operating system instead of fucking the main one. Because memory has like a certain amount of writes and reads. So you got that situation going on. And if you was wondering why I was looking down, I was looking at the the Returnal gameplay just to keep myself, into it. So you had that shit going on, and then for some reason, someone decided to take out the battery of the PS3. Oh yeah, the PlayStation Store. They're going to close down a 15-year-old store in game preservation, and Sony should do Game Pass, and they don't care about us, and it's like that fucking Michael Jackson song. All I gotta say is that they don't really care. It was like this fucking crazy fucking people on the streets, like being dumb, and it was like people were just saying whatever, and then you had Jason Schreier say, "Oh, there's a uproar with internally with Sony's empire," and people was just like, "Oh, really?" And then they just latched onto that one, which was found out to be like sensationalized, of course, and that was the thing. So
They kind of shut that one down a little bit too, man.
they did,
With the
they did, they
with the
shut it.
Jeff
The
Ross.
two ex developers shut it down anyway,
Yep.
and
With Jeff Ross and John Gavin.
yeah, the Days Gone developers just shut that shit all the way down because it was like, what the fuck is people talking about? Like, it was very annoying. Um, and they shut that down. But I like how they shut it down because they could be like, I heard. I mean, we know that you heard some things and we want to address it. They didn't bother doing that because that would be acknowledging that something's wrong. So what they ended up doing was like, hey, um, we haven't spoken to you guys in a while, so here's what we've been working on. We're working on, we have two indie studios that we're working on. So we want to congratulate them on their work and stuff like that. And notice how they didn't directly say, "Oh, we heard that Double A Studios, we're not supporting it, so we're gonna," that's a lot of negative energy, and I got a lot to learn when it comes to shit like that too. You don't ever want to address anyone like that. You do it a different way, and indirectly. Then he were like, "Well, um, here at Sony, we are so focused on innovation and experimentation. We got a lot of cool things coming up. So that destroyed the narrative of the same old AAA games. And then they have shit to back it up like Returnal. Anyway, um,
Yeah, and they have a bunch of other games too, man, with like Kenna and Sifu and some of those other games that they showed at the last State of Play and stuff like that. Obviously, they're investing into indie games. So, I mean, and smaller developers. They announced the studio with Jade Raymond, and now they're working on their first game as their Haven Studio, their first official studio now. Um, as an independent studio. So I mean, it was just a lot, man.
he
They
also
announced
said
that
that he
amazing game.
also said that they were looking at acquisitions as well. If it fits, I mean, he reiterated that he's looking into acquisitions, which it doesn't matter though. They already have successful teams under them. If they want to grow a studio, they don't need to buy it. They could just grow the existing ones. You know what I mean? Ubisoft puts out a whole bunch of fucking Assassin's Creeds and fighting games, all sorts of shit, and they only have about like what 1,000 people, 1,500 all together. You don't need a ton of fucking studios. somehow it was believed that the more studios you have, the more like it's a mess. So Ken kind of explained everything, and I touched up on it. Jeremy, what do you got to say about all that information? I know you follow it, but I'm curious of all the shit that Jim nipped in the bud. Jeremy, Discord probably got fucked up, so you may need to back out and go back in. Yeah, he's about to come back in. It's Discord is so stupid, yo. It just does what it wants to do. Jeremy, can you hear me? He's still fucked up. I'll move on to you next. Terry, what do you got to say about all the stuff that we said?
Well, I don't think I know as much as y'all do, but I did do a little research. So I think at face value, from what I've gleaned, I think what Sony has gone through recently is just a PR nightmare, in the sense that um, the big one was the interview that Jim Ryan had with Bloomberg, where he talked about remaking Uncharted and remaking The Last of Us, and we're not doing a Days Gone sequel, and we're just focusing on AAA games. Um, then of course he talked about the $70 video game price tag, and the the language he used, how he approached those subjects, um, was just really rough around the edges, and he probably could have came at it in a different manner. Another thing too is that when you look at the guy that came before him, Sean Layden, um, I don't remember if it was which E3 it was or what presentation, but I remember he talked about this game called a Vib Ribbon, where he talked about, hey, it wasn't a major seller, but it created this unique experience. And he said, it's all about the games. That's the focus. And it's like, even if that guy was full of shit, right? Even if what he was saying he didn't really mean, the fact that the optics, the presentation of him talking about that, uh, it hits a chord with the PlayStation fan base, and its customers thereof. And it's just Jim Ryan. He's just, um, whether he means well or not, just how he's come about things have been real shitty. So like, obviously you had the thing with PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita stores. It's like, oh, we're going to close them down. Then he did 180 and said, oh, they'll be open for the foreseeable future. You had the conversation about the C bomb. Um, you had people like David Jaffe kind of comment and was like, hey, is this guy kind of out of touch, or is he clueless as to what he's doing? So I think there is a legitimate concern in that the guy who's the CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, like, is this just a PR nightmare, or is this guy kind of out of touch? Because there was a rumor that there was this power struggle and all this shit between him and Sean Layden or whatever. Whether or not that was just a personal thing, or that affected the company on a larger scale, I mean, who knows? Um, I mean, there were some things that Jim Ryan did do, like he did make more games free or available, in the context of like the PlayStation Store and PlayStation Plus. He did greenlight a new VR format. Also, he is kind of responsible for bringing these Sony exclusives to PC, which, of course, depending on who you are, you may think that's a great idea. You may think that's fucking terrible. Um, I will say that having, that recent interview, having someone like Herman Hulst, who, you know, um, has been in the trenches, metaphorically and literally in some sense with Killzone. He kind of understands. He has a good perspective on what it takes to make a game and the work that goes through it. Where someone like Jim Ryan, that's still questionable. Like, is he just a brass tacks businessman, or does he understand what makes video games a unique medium, right? And knows how to handle the business uh, with the appropriate perspective. Um, so it's really at face value, it's just a PR nightmare. But I do think it does bring up some legitimate concerns of, hey, this Jim Ryan guy who's running the circus, like, is he the right guy for the job, or is he just a brass tacks businessman? I mean, we'll see, as we get further into the future. But I think this is it brings up some legitimate questions of what kind of person Jim Ryan is going to be, leading um, the PlayStation, going into the future.
I want to say this because my question to you is, how do you feel about the way that they kind of course corrected with all of that what you just said being said?
Um, I mean, it could be that maybe he had enough people kind of tickle his ears and say, hey man, like people are looking at us cross-eyed because how you said some things or how you approach certain subjects. We need to correct that. You know.
What do you think
Um,
about the stuff that he said? I should say.
no, I mean
I mean, do
I
you feel
like
like
what he's.
do you feel like he addressed it?
Uh, yeah, I mean as it pertains to the recent interview that Ken had mentioned. I feel like most of those concerns have been addressed. Yeah. So I mean, I liked what he said and I appreciated what he said in the interview. But once again, like you know, taking it at face value, yeah, that sounds great. But is it because he kind of realized, oh, I kind of fucked up, I need to correct things, or maybe he was like, I need to correct how I talk about these subjects? Um, is it sincere or is it just like is the pressure made him do a 180? I don't know.
Jeremy,
So
are you there? He's still messed up here.
I kind of feel like this whole situation with Jim Ryan, man. Um, I don't know, man. It's kind of like a multifaceted conversation, obviously, but um, there were obviously some things that were already in play before Jim Ryan ever, um, got into the position that he was. So like this whole thing with games going to PC and all that. Sean Layden was already talking with that rhetoric, before Jim Ryan ever got into his position. So I mean, I feel like a lot of what's going on right now was already in the works with Sony. It's just Jim Ryan is sort of like the one who kind of has to take the brunt of it, because now he is the head of Sony worldwide, or so. Um, and yeah, man, like I don't know. I feel like a lot of people were just kind of like just running with whatever they could, basically, because they just weren't talking. Like that's really what it was, you know. A lot of the shit that people were talking about, I feel like they pretty much addressed it for the most part, you
Well,
know.
I want to say this
Um,
before we close out. We only have a few minutes left here. You asked the question, Terry, and that question was, "Is he full of shit?" And
Can you hear me now?
well, now I do.
oh
What
yeah,
happened?
I don't know. My PS headset wasn't picking it up, so I switched to a different one.
Oh, got you. So Jim Ryan, back in the 360 and the PS3 era, the UK and just Europe in general it was an Xbox place, like for sure. And Jim Ryan was head of the Europe Sony computer entertainment area, and he changed that around so heavily. It is like a 6-1 type situation. Like they were like completely dominant in Europe, and that's how he got his spot essentially. The gold figure, you know what I'm saying? But Jeremy, what did you have to say about the stuff that Jim Ryan addressed?
Jim Ryan?
Yeah.
fuck that motherfucker.
I don't know. I don't really care much about the people in the suits, but I don't really understand a lot of it in the first place because you look at Oddworld came to PlayStation Plus, Bug Stacks, frickin' Seafood, all this stuff. Everyone used to give PlayStation shit because it's like, oh, look at all the indies that are coming to PlayStation. Now it's like, I don't understand it really, but there's more indies on PlayStation than any other console, anyways, other than computer. But the store thing, it's like they're using resources on stuff that nobody's buying anymore,
I
and they
mean,
gave you a warning.
I get, like some people are like, oh, I don't know, Jim Ryan, he doesn't really seem like a gamer and all that. And I
That's not his
agree, man.
job.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I agree. Like, he doesn't come across to me as somebody who, who, like, he really games and all that. You know what I'm saying? Um, but that's not to say that he doesn't understand, like, his audience and the culture of what, what they're trying to do
The business
at
aspect.
PlayStation, or even just the game aspect. Like, I think he knows what people want. You know what I'm saying? I think he knows, like, what the community wants. Uh,
How do you
for the
know?
most
People
part.
don't know what they want.
I don't know. I mean, but I
I
mean,
swear to
just
God, they
like, just
don't.
I'm just saying, like, how they came out and they addressed a lot of the situations. I mean, a lot of the narratives, like, within these last, like, couple of interviews. I mean, this was the shit that people were really talking about, man. Like, this was the narratives that people were literally running with,
I couldn't believe some of the
unsubstantiated.
narratives. Like, we're gonna make more AAA games. Well, what do most people want? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing, like, they know that people want this shit, you know. You know what I'm saying? They know that people want more AAA games. They know people want exclusive games. They know, I
more
think,
AAAs than ever. They said too. It's like
yeah, that
I
too.
can't see
Yeah,
ever PS1. PS1. I mean,
No, they
that's
said
tough to
that,
beat.
well, they didn't make their own games like that back then. So that's the thing.
They didn't. They didn't say that they're not gonna be first party though. They just said exclusive. That could be third party. Because I
Mm.
well,
mean,
Josh did
Nintendo had
connect it earlier.
Nintendo and Rareware, and PlayStation had everybody else.
Josh
Basically,
did make a point earlier, man, because I don't know if it was Herman Hulst or if it was Jim Ryan, but they mentioned that they were gonna have the most dedicated software, um,
And that's
than any other
and
generation.
that's not the same
yeah, they
thing as
didn't say
saying
first
exclusive.
party.
Yeah, and that's not the same thing as
That's
exclusive.
true.
We don't know what that means, and they were very careful on what they said, at least in that regard.
Yeah, you know what, man? Because I think it probably does have a lot to do not only with the console, because obviously, they have a big emphasis on their console, but now they're talking about things like PC more, and now that, and we didn't even touch on this. They talked about their cloud strategy, you know, and some of although there wasn't much information, they did touch on it that they do have a strategy, and that whatever it's going to be is going to be unique to the PlayStation, right? So I think you're right, Josh. When they say, like, dedicated software, I think it sort of, like, encapsulates all of that,
That can mean
to some extent.
DLC too.
Yeah,
It could mean just DLC, and they already have DLC rights to certain things. So that's what I was saying. I wouldn't look too deeply into it. Now, you mentioned the cloud situation where they're planning on kind of double downing on the cloud situation. I know PlayStation Now can stream 1080p for certain games, so that's interesting to hear. And then lastly, Gran Turismo creator, what's his name? What's his name, Terry? I can never. Yamauchi Kuchi.
It's I forget. It's like is it? I think it's Kazunori,
Kazunori
Yamauchi, something like that.
Yamakuchi.
So
Yamabushi.
Well, Namabushi. Uh, he said that basically he's interested in making
Yamuchi or whatever. Yamachi. You talking about him?
no Gran Turismo creator. It didn't sound like that.
Takeshi Yokuchi.
Yo,
Executive
Tickle Tickle Yakuchi.
yeah, yeah, I got it. I got it right. It's
We'll go with that.
Kazunori Yamauchi.
Yamachi.
Kazunori Yamauchi.
Yamamuchi. Yeah.
He said he said that he wants to make another game that's not Gran Turismo. He also stated that he wants to make a really cool hub world for Gran Turismo as well. So I'm not sure what that's going to be about. And then lastly, there's a rumor about uh, Polyphony Digital making some sort of AAA game that's not racing, possibly an RPG. So
I want to know what Ben's working on now.
whatever it is, it has vehicles, and
Yeah,
and
no, that's Ken said something about that the
yeah,
other day. I was like, really?
yeah.
Wait, what did I say?
Maybe it was you. I don't remember. Somebody put it in Discord that it had vehicles in it.
Wait,
Ben Studios. What do you
They were
call it?
hiring for it, I
They're
think.
hiring for it. Yeah, their new title, their new whatever they're doing.
It's gonna have vehicular stuff in it, so it could be like a SOCOM too,
I
or
think
like
that
a
was you, Josh,
breakpoint. You
man.
know?
It probably was me. Yeah.
It-
I mean,
yeah, because you were the
I
one.
don't necessarily know what they're doing with it, but I mean, the future is pretty bright for PS5 currently. I mean, I don't. Jim Ryan hasn't lied necessarily yet. Everything that
Yo,
he based, huh?
have you played that new Call of Duty game that came out
No, I don't play
around
Call of
launch?
Duty at all.
He said you lied to us. He said I didn't lie. It was an omission of fact.
Well, well, but I mean, the stuff that he said that he was going to do has come to pass. So I know people want to hear what they want to hear. Like for instance, and we'll wrap this up. People stated that what is it? What did they say about the exclusives?
What
Oh,
did they say?
they got upset. The general masses, maybe it's just Twitter, who knows? But they got upset with,
Twitter fucking bubble. That's what it
yeah,
is.
that's what it is. They were like, oh, I can't believe that Sony is doubling down on putting games on PC when if we cried hard enough, they didn't say anything about us crying hard for the PlayStation Store. They act like they didn't see the games coming out on PC. We didn't want that to happen, but yet they reverse course on the PlayStation 5 store or PS3 the 4 store or whatever the fuck it is. Um,
I heard that. Yeah, I actually remember that. There were some people who were saying
People
that
were
shit.
saying that they claimed
Yeah,
that they didn't hear anybody cry about it, you know, um, and yet at the same time, we cried about the PlayStation Network store and they reversed course. So I had to tell a person, I'm like, yo, they said they didn't see any adverse reactions. They never said they didn't see it at all. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to to reverse course. You know, shit like that. People just want to read whatever they want to read because they're pissed off about something. You know, it's like if you don't like someone, anything that they do is gonna piss you off. That's just what it is. There was this one meme, and it was like this little innocent little girl eating a piece of toast, and and they said the same phrase. If you don't like somebody, you're gonna piss them off. And then they had like a little caption under there. They was like, "Look at this stupid little bitch eating a toast like she owned the place." Like, it just, it's to the point where it's just like, Jim Ryan couldn't do anything right anyway. But they did
yeah, man.
address it. There's still people out there that says, there was a petition, Terry, to say that to get rid of Jim Ryan. There was literally a petition.
That shit's probably still floating around, to be honest.
I'm sure it is.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about it. I mean, I haven't looked into it myself, so.
Makes you roll your eyes. Like,
Uh,
what the fucking
I mean, a lot
stupid.
of the shit was unsubstantiated in the first place, man. You know, I mean, even him coming out now, like people are still like, "Yo, Jim Ryan needs to go." It's like, nigga, he literally just addressed all the shit that you guys were talking about.
I know, but I don't like his face. Get his
I
ass out of
fucking like
here.
his face,
You
that
know.
Aussie motherfucker. You know, you know. It's just like,
Aussie bitch. You be like, damn. What he do?
yeah, yeah, man. I'm like, damn.
He don't play
But
games. Fucking Phil Spencer don't either.
I mean, I think even even if you think Sony or PlayStation is in good hands with Jim Ryan, you still have to admit that it was kind of a PR nightmare, honestly.
It wasn't kind of a PR nightmare. It was
yeah, it
major,
was.
major issues.
The language, the optics, it didn't look and it didn't sound good. Um, but hopefully with that recent interview, hopefully things will be taken care of and be in good hands, right? So
You know what, man? Like, I get it when people, where some people are coming from, man. You know, they don't really like Jim Ryan. I don't even really like Jim Ryan. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, even with all this shit, like, I don't really care for the guy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not gonna act like I do. What I care about is how he's gonna lead, you know, like PlayStation, going forward. And those were some of my concerns, because obviously, when a lot of this stuff was being said, even though we were kind of like we took it like all of us like me and Josh and some of us, we took a step back. We were like, hold up, this doesn't look right. Reality is different from what people are saying. Um, they did sort of, shit. I lost my fucking thought, but anyway, my point is that um, I don't really like the guy, but the stuff that people were talking about, the concerns that, at least for myself, and I think a lot of other people as well, like they addressed it, man. I don't really think that there is a lot to worry about right now. Obviously they're making some different decisions, like putting their first party games on PC, and now they have some kind of cloud strategy and all that stuff, and they were talking about mobile gaming and all that type of shit, putting their like big IP on mobile devices and shit. I get it, man. But for the most part, man, I really don't think there's a lot to worry about. I mean, they're doing, I think, what most of us want. They're doubling down on the AAA games. They still value exclusive games, obviously. You know, they value unique experiences. You know, so all of that. You know what I'm saying? They still want to maintain that level of quality. AAA quality with their games. They're growing their studios slowly, but they're still growing them. They're all working on their own things. So I don't know. Like all of the concerns, I feel like they mostly addressed. And I don't know, man. If you don't like Jim Ryan, it is what it is. You know, but as far as like the leadership in terms of what they're doing, I don't really think there's that much to worry about, man.
No, I think that he's probably used to handling Europe. You know what I'm saying? And that's they probably didn't act like crybabies in the United States. So
He's probably not used to the little bitchness.
he's probably like, what the fuck? Do I have to
So,
really tell them like every step of the fucking way?
Do I really have to pamper all these motherfuckers?
Jesus Christ, he probably Jesus Christ. That's probably what he ended up doing.
My 3-year-old whining less than these bitches.
So we're gonna wrap up the show and everything like that. I know everybody got shit to do. But before I go, I wanted to say this. David Jaffe says this. He was talking about the Oscars or Grammys, whatever the fuck they are. He says if the Oscars are curious why their ratings are tanking, well, there's a few reasons actually. But one of the biggest issues is don't stream it. Is that they don't stream it unless you have a streaming live TV. This is why Jeff Keighley is eating y'all's lunch. So I ended up telling David Jaffe, I said they should put it on Game Pass.
Did he block you?
No, he liked it.
Jeffy's cool, man. I like him.
No, he's still
He
annoying. But
tells it how he is.
it's still annoying. No, he just
He
says a
is.
whole bunch of. He says a lot of annoying things to me. I don't like him, but I like to fuck with him in that way. No, it's all fun and games. I mean, you can have your opinion, and that's the problem with the world anyway. You can't have an opinion,
I like him because you don't give a fuck if you like his opinion.
No, he blocks people for opinions for sure. Especially when you talk about like LGBTs for sure. Like he
Yo,
really
he
doesn't
blocked
like
the
that
fuck
shit.
out of me, yo. Yo, he blocked the hell out of me, man. When I
Did he?
yeah, he did, man. Like it
What'd
was.
you say?
I didn't even really say anything, dude. Like what happened was, it was during the whole thing with The Last of Us Part Two, and fuck, I'm not trying to get into a conversation about that fucking game. But
I get it.
but yeah, it was like right around the time when the leaks came out, and everybody just like they went crazy. And there was this like meme going around of the the person who was like destroying the GameStop. Somebody like cropped it and photoshopped it onto the like one of the PS4 boxes, and I think it said the "Mam of Us Part 2." It's fucking the "Mam of Us 2" or something like that. And he made a comment, and I posted that shit in his comment, and he said something like,
He was like, I can't believe it. See, what I won't tolerate is people that are insensitive to this or some shit. Something along those lines.
something like that.
And then
Something like that. And it was a whole fucking joke, bro. But that motherfucker blocked me, quick as shit.
yeah, so
Yo, he blocked me
he's
with the
like super
quickness, yo.
liberal, and it's kind of irritating. But at the same time, I was like, he's a big advocate for Game Pass, and if Terry doesn't know, he's a huge advocate for Game Pass. I don't know what the factuation is because Steve Jobs, Phil Spencer blocked him on Twitter.
David Jeffrey?
Yeah.
The fuck did he block him?
They called him a piece of shit manager or a shitty manager.
I did not even know that. Wow, that's
So,
crazy.
and he's still evangelizing Game Pass for some reason, but it is what it is. Well, hopefully you guys
before we
like,
close out though, Josh,
huh?
before we close out, I wanted to just do a little housekeeping here, man. Just all of you guys who came in, just make sure you,
You're gonna have to
just
do you're
follow.
gonna have to do a Twitter. You will be wasting your voice. Just do a Twitter thing. I'll tell you
Okay.
about it afterwards.
All right, all right. I mean, I was gonna say the other thing about Returnal too, but everybody
I
knows it's
know.
coming out
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All of that needs to be done
Yeah.
on Twitter. I'm gonna tell you why afterwards.
All right, that's cool. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. So I guess we can close it out.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for joining in. Whoever comes in or whoever comes in late after the video is archived. Thank you, Terry, for jumping in.
Yeah, man.
And doing what you need to do here. I appreciate you. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Peace out.